Hi, it's Ann, and today we're going to talk about the power of story in Star Wars. Today is May the 4th, or May the Force be with you. It's Star Wars Day. Well, Star Wars is an epic story of the forces of good and evil. Now, we're just really lucky that it is a good epic story. You see, when George Lucas was writing this sprawling tale, he went all over the place. He was like in two drafts, and it just wasn't making sense. And then he read Joseph Campbell's book, which is called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And in this book, Joseph Campbell explains repeating motifs in story and myth. And he calls this story cycle the hero's journey. And luckily, George followed this framework that Joseph Campbell had identified, and that made the story really strong and powerful. Unfortunately, George didn't follow this framework in every story, and sometimes he just invented characters so he could sell more plastic figures and party sets for 5-year-olds. Now, Nancy Duarte, in her excellent book, see how much this is eared, I love it, it's called Resonate. And here she actually applies Joseph Campbell's hero's journey to the Star Wars saga. And I'm going to try to share that with you. Oops, I'm not going to try, I'm going to do. So here we go. A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was a boy. And this is the point in the story that's called the ordinary world. Luke is on Tatooine, and he dreams of adventure. And he says, if there's a planet that's furthest from the center of galaxy, this is it. And then there's the call to adventure. He buys a droid to help on his uncle's moisture farm. And this droid plays a story of this beautiful, dashing woman. Shh, it's his sister. And she says, ObiWan Kenobi, help me. You're my only hope. And that is the call to adventure. And then, so, he meets Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan says, you must join me in my fight. And Luke, at this point, he's kind of whiny Luke. He says, I can't. I have to help with my uncle's moisture farm. And this whining is the refusal of the call. He says he can't go. But then after talking more with Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan tells him about his heritage. And he can't do that. But luckily, this part is called the meeting of the mentor. But then conveniently, Luke's uncle and aunt die. They're killed by, well, we're supposed to think they're sand people, but really only stormtroopers can be this precise. So with them dead, Luke has no reason to stay on this sand pit of a planet, and he's ready to go. And this is called crossing the threshold. He says, I will go with you and learn to become a Jedi. So our good friends go to Mos Eisley. They hire Han and Chewie, and this is called the Test Allies and Enemies, and this is where they meet their crew. They meet all their team where they're going to fight the bad guys. So they hire Han and Chewie. They have to evade fire as they leave the planet. And then while they're on the Millennium Falcon, this is called the approach to the Innermost cave. And here, this is where Luke really starts to learn about the Force and starts to talk about, he learns about how it can be used. And Han Solo says, I don't need no hokey religion and old ancient weapons. I prefer a blaster at my side. Then they go to the Death Star. That's no planet. And here, at this point in the story, this is called the Ordeal. And the boys dress as stormtroopers. They rescue the princess. And then they end up in this garbage pit. But this part is called the Ordeal. And here their reward now is they seize the sword and they're becoming a team, because only by becoming a team they're able to overcome the trash compactor and that snaky thing that tries to eat Luke. Well, now this stage is called The Road Back, and they have to fight more stormtroopers. And oh my goodness, it's the classic story. The bad guy, the villain, and Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fight. And Obi-Wan sacrifices himself. And the rest of them escape. And so now, this point in the story is called the resurrection. It's the final attempt at achieving this big change. So, Luke is in his X-Wing, and yeehaw! The Millennium Falcon joins in, and then Luke hears Obi-Wan in the Force, and he says, Luke, use the Force, and boom! The Death Star blows up. And now we're at the point in the story that's called The Return. And peace is restored, at least for now, and Han and Luke and Chewie get the Medal of Honor from the princess. So I hope you enjoyed this. Happy writing, and follow along for more fun, and happy Star Wars Day to all of you.